He's coming, Master.
Sith Lords
are our specialty.
Obi-Wan Kenobi gets right to the good stuff, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that this episode is fire. Directed by Deborah Chow, part 3 of this series gets right to what we wanted to see when the series was announced, and I think you know exactly what I'm talking about. And we'll break down all of that, plus run down all the Easter eggs in this one. But before we get into all of that, I have to warn you, we are going to spoil this whole dang episode. So if you haven't seen it yet or just don't want to know, now is your chance to duck down a secret corridor to safety while we get into this. Okay, now that we're past the spoiler warning, let's get right into it. Welcome to the rematch! Vader and Obi-Wan face off once again for the first time since Kenobi chopped off Anakin's remaining human limbs and left him burning on the shores of Mustafar. And Vader definitely wins this round, but Kenobi escapes. We think there's at least one more rematch coming in this series, but they got to the good stuff right away, and look, it's pretty good. And we'll break that down in a sec because this episode ends on a pretty major cliffhanger as Kenobi faced off with Vader, young Leia, who was racing through a secret tunnel to a good guy pilot who would have flown her to safety, except he's dead thanks to Inquisitor Reva, who cured him of his pesky oxygen addiction. So as the episode ends, all seems lost. Kenobi is gravely wounded after his encounter with Vader, and Leia is captured by Reva. Okay, I know that's a lot to dump on you all at once, so let's do a quick recap to show how we wound up here. Obi-Wan and Leia make it off Daiyu to Mapuzo, where they go undercover as a farmer and his daughter from Tal, while hitching a ride aboard an Imperial-friendly transport. Cover Obi-Wan nearly blows by calling Leia by her real name in front of stormtroopers. They're saved by an undercover Imperial officer, Indira Varma's Tala, who gets them out of there and hides them, intending to smuggle them off-planet and back to Alderaan. They make it to town and hide in the back room of a droid mechanic's shop manned by a loader droid with the designation Ned B. Said mechanic's shop is just a front for Tala to smuggle Order 66 survivors off-world. Obi-Wan realizes that there are lots of people who never stopped resisting the Empire, but just as they all start to feel a little more confident, Obi-Wan senses a disturbance in the Force. Lord Vader has showed up in town, and you know he can sense who's there. Vader looks, sounds, and acts like his original trilogy self, force-choking random innocents along the street. Earlier in the episode, it was revealed he's the one who's having Reva pursue Obi-Wan so intently, and he dangles the Grand Inquisitor title to her if she is successful. That or death.
Fail me, and you will not live to regret it.
That is significant because it shows that Vader is following the Sith handbook when it comes to Sith-adjacent dark side Force users. He dangles more power in front of her, so she'll do what he wants, and as soon as she outlives her usefulness, he will discard of her. Probably personally. Just ask Asajj Ventress about this. She would tell you, but she's very much not alive at this point in the timeline. But I digress. Obi-Wan tells Tala to take Leia to Alderaan and that he'll steal Vader away. Vader indeed follows Obi-Wan and wants to fight, and while kinda old Ben initially tries to flee, Vader forces, pun intended, the conflict. Leia tells Tala to go back and help Obi-Wan and that she'll be okay to get to the pilot on her own. Back to Vader. Remember the last thing Anakin said to Kenobi all those years ago? Yeah, that. He definitely still feels that way, and he is mad about what happened on Mustafar. So much that he lights the ground on fire and force drags Obi-Wan through the flames and coals after force choking him in the air for a while. If Vader can't be handsome anymore, no one can. If you were expecting a big flashy battle to counteract the slow and plodding one from A New Hope, this wasn't it. Obi-Wan seems unsure and a little unwilling overall. He's a bit rusty, and he needs to get his groove back.
The years have made you weak.
All of this, of course, brings new context to this line from A New Hope.
I sense something, a presence I've not felt since...
And at Star Wars Celebration, director Deborah Chow talked about this and how the Obi-Wan Kenobi team threaded the needle to make everything make sense as they backed into story beats set up by the original trilogy.
I think for us, given that we are in between the two trilogies, is that we really did want to respect the canon and we didn't want to break anything. And we definitely felt a responsibility to hook up to A New Hope in a proper way. So fortunately, he didn't end that sentence in that line. So that helped us out quite a bit. And there was an ellipse in there. So, but I think the biggest thing we wanted to do is, there's a 20-year gap. And with these characters, where they ended at the end of Revenge of the Sith versus where they started in A New Hope, something clearly happened. And there was some character change in there, so that's the story we're trying to tell.
I've been waiting for you, Obi-Wan. We meet again at last.
During the duel, Vader fights a little like how he fights in Empire Strikes Back. He toys with him at first to test his limits and then straight up overpowers his opponent with ferocious lightsaber strikes and uses the Force like a weapon. Kenobi only survives the encounter thanks to Tala and her mild-mannered load lifter droid, Ned B. So, to answer our own cheeky headline, no, Obi-Wan was not ready for this rematch and got his ass handed to him by a very angry Vader. But this is only part 3 of a 6-part series, so it's almost a guarantee that they'll face off again. So Kenobi needs to get his groove back, plus a good training montage, and he'll be ready for the next one.
He brought me here to see the place where he met my mother. Poor sheep.
She's not with us anymore.
The irony here is that Vader/Anakin is in such close proximity to his daughter and doesn't even realize it because he's blinded by his own rage and obsession with Kenobi. If he's spent even a little bit of time investigating why Kenobi is on Mapuzo in the first place, it would lead him straight to his own flesh and blood. Leia is very much an active participant in this whole operation, just like she was the first time we saw her as the target of a rescue mission.
What the hell are you doing?
Somebody has to save our skins.
Same vibe here, except without the blaster. She is clearly very clued in to what's going on and understands that if this doesn't work, she's in big trouble. Back to Indira Varma's Tala. When we first saw her in the trailers, we were pretty sure she'd be an Imperial officer, except...
Come on.
Psych! She's rebel scum through and through. She's resisting the Empire in secret and is trying to help Obi-Wan and Leia escape Mapuzo with their lives. And it's clear from the carvings in the secret room, she's helped quite a few Force sensitives and former Jedi with her operation. Kenobi references the Clone Wars era Jedi Quinlan Vos in this scene. We'll get to him in the Easter eggs, but of course, all of this planning and execution ultimately means nothing, since the episode ends on her being captured by Reva. This all but ensures that there will be another Vader Kenobi rematch. He has no choice but to try and rescue the princess from the clutches of the Inquisitors, and he'd better do it fast because the moment Darth Vader slows down and asks a question or two, this whole thing is cooked, which of course we know cannot happen, what with the existence of the original trilogy and everything. Of course, Vader had lots of interactions with Leia in A New Hope, and it never occurs to him that they might be related. It's not like Luke had any clue either, for that matter. Ew. Which brings us to Reva, who has not been officially reprimanded for arbitrarily trimming the Inquisitor org chart with that fancy lightsaber of hers. Seriously, who gets away with that? Don't like your boss? Impale him. HR won't even care. And they don't. Literally nobody does, including Lord Vader himself. Reva has a scene with Lord Vader who doesn't care at all that she iced the Grand Inquisitor and even offers her his old job if she can lead him to Kenobi, which seems to be what she really wanted all along. Once again, Moses Ingram pours a lot into the character of the Inquisitor Reva, and it is the opinion of this particular Deep Dive Star Wars program that she's one of the best things about this show. Reva is lethal. She bears so much intensity, and she wields the dark side of the Force like someone who very much wants to ascend to a full-blown Sith. Moses Ingram rules in this show, and we hope Obi-Wan gets to face off against her too eventually, not just Vader. Moses is one of a long line of Star Wars performers subjected to disgusting behavior on the part of certain fans. This time it's racist DMs from people who apparently didn't like her performance, which is a massive oversimplification, but we refuse to give the messages or their authors any oxygen here. That kind of thing is unacceptable. Moses is fantastic, and we're glad she's a part of Star Wars. But don't take it from me, take it from Obi-Wan himself.
As the leading actor in the series, as the executive producer on the series, that we stand with Moses. We love Moses. And if you're sending her bullying messages, you're no Star Wars fan in my mind. There's no place for racism in this world. And I totally stand with Moses.
Okay, now it's time for some Easter eggs. Here's what we found in this episode.
I am what you made me.
That might be Hayden Christensen under Vader's armor, but that's not his voice. That, of course, is the voice of the legendary James Earl Jones, reprising his role as Vader's voice for the first time since dropping dad jokes in Rogue One.
Be careful not to choke on your aspirations, Director.
I think. Classic Vader. Mapuzo was once lush and full of life, but was depleted by the Empire's mining activity, most likely Vintrium, a type of mineral, and now it looks like... well, it looks a lot like the Southern California desert. Back to the lore, according to Wikipedia, Mapuzo is supposed to be a Type 2 atmosphere planet. Breathing masks are needed, but everyone who lived there seemed to be fine without them. Mostly fine. Obi-Wan shoots the gate mechanism on Mapuzo with a blaster to make it open. This is not the first time that method was used in Star Wars continuity. There was a famous Wilhelm scream from that one stormtrooper who got cut in half. He went out doing what he loved, screaming comically and getting cut in half. This isn't quite an Easter egg, but Obi-Wan definitely has a brother.
I think I had a brother. I really don't remember him.
He said he thought he remembered having one before he moved away to the Jedi Academy, but there's no reason to include that if it's not coming back later.
You were my brother, Anakin! I loved you!
Tala is working to transport Obi-Wan and Leia to Jabeam, which is another terrestrial ore-rich location in the Outer Rim. Later it fell under the First Order's control and was where Wookiee slaves were trafficked, Chewbacca being intended to be sent there before he managed to escape and free some Wookiees during the blockade of Kashyyyk. Jabeam was first introduced in the comic Republic 55 from July 2003. A stormtrooper says he'll check out that T-16. This is a popular Skyhopper model, I guess, since that's the same model Luke will later use to bullseye Womp Rats, which turns out aren't much bigger than 2 meters.
Quinlan was here.
Yeah, he helps now and again.
Obi-Wan makes a reference to the Jedi Quinlan Vos, long thought to be a survivor of Order 66. Now that's confirmed here. He and Obi-Wan worked together during the Clone Wars series, and according to the novel Dark Disciple, Quinlan fell to the dark side for a bit before being brought back to the light by Obi-Wan. Maybe we'll see him pop in later to do a solid for his old friend, but his presence could also be an indicator that Obi-Wan isn't a complete failure like he's apt to think. Speaking of Quinlan, he left the message.
Only when the eyes are closed can you truly see.
Leia asks what can be seen, and Obi-Wan replies,
The way.
Is that a Mandalorian reference? Maybe it's capitalized in the captioning like Din Djarin's favorite phrase, but it could also mean something more metaphorical or even Quinlan's own psychometry abilities. Of course, Din Djarin believes there's only one way.
There is only one way. the way of the Mandalore.
There's a Zach Braff voice cameo, and what the frack? Zach Braff of Scrubs fame voices the friendly speeder pilot who gives Obi-Wan and Leia a ride straight into the heart of Imperial occupied territory.
Now, where did you say you're from again?
Tala is new to Star Wars, but we've definitely seen Indira Varma before. Most famously, she watched a future Mandalorian make the critical error of refusing to wear a helmet into battle. Tala's droid, Ned B, is a loyal load lifter, but he's pretty quiet. In fact, he doesn't communicate at all. Remember when Uncle Owen bought 3PO from the Jawas in A New Hope? Now we know why having a translator might be handy when dealing with a load lifter.
Sir, my first job was programming binary load lifters, very similar to your evaporators in most respects.
And finally, let's flash back to last week when a bunch of you were yelling at us in the comments that the Grand Inquisitor wasn't dead. Seems like he is dead, or at least he's just not coming back, so of course that means that either there are multiple Utapowian Grand Inquisitors if he's going to show up in Rebels some years later, and on and on and on our theorizing goes when Lord Vader told us explicitly how we should think of the artist, formerly known as the Grand Inquisitor, moving forward.
The Grand Inquisitor means nothing.
But what do you think of Part 3? Obi-Wan and Vader are going to face off again, right? They have to, and how cool is it to hear James Earl Jones come back as the voice? And are we about to get an Obi-Wan training montage where he gets his groove back? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And thank you for watching this episode of Canon Fodder. I'm Kim Horcher, and if it's more Kenobi you're hunting for, check out our review of Part 3, and don't forget to follow and subscribe to IGN wherever you like to watch.